Side note, I had to explain to T why we had to do this in March.
Yeah.
And what March Madness was all about.
Yeah.
Because I'm like, we should do this bracket thing. And he's like, oh cool, yeah, we'll get to that some month. And I'm like, no, it's March Madness. It's gotta be this month.
Listen, it can exist outside of March Madness, I think.
Hey everybody, this is J&T with movie Purgatory, and today we're going to do something a little different because it's March Madness and we're not really big sports fans or basketball fans.
Nope.
We found a March Monster Madness bracket online. We thought it'd be really fun to kind of just go through it and make our picks for the bracket of famous movie monsters. I downloaded the bracket template from Horror Punks USA. I'll put up an image of it, probably put a link to their site. They had a really good one that was broken up into 4 subjects, 4 quadrants of different kinds of movie monster genres. Me and T went through individually and made our picks.
Yes.
And so we're going to go through it first kind of quadrant by quadrant and see who we picked and why and have some discussion there. We'll do a little bit of back and forth and arguing on whose pick is right or why we chose one monster over the other.
Right.
So the 4 March Monster Madness movie monster genres they have on here is the Universal monsters, which we're all familiar with, Kaiju, which is the giant Japanese monsters genre.
Yeah, basically all the monsters that Godzilla fought in a lot of those like old 50s, 60s, 70s, yeah, actually even modern movies.
And then there's also some other movie monsters of that scale kind of thrown in the mix. Then we have the slashers.
Yep, Jason Voorhees, Michael Myers, Candyman, all those kind of big 80s guys for sure.
And then finally, there's supernatural. So these are ones that maybe didn't fit in the other 3, or they have a supernatural kind of power vibe to them.
Yep.
So yeah, we're gonna go through these one subgroup at a time. We'll narrow it down to the final 4.
Yeah.
And then we can talk about which 2 are left, and finally, who comes up on top.
Our number 1 pick. Yeah, I'm very interested to see what Jay picks here, because I think it's going to be quite different from mine. But yeah, this project is actually a lot funner than I thought it was going to be. I thought I would just breeze through this in just a couple of minutes.
Yeah.
But there was a lot of kind of research, revisiting some movies, YouTube clips to kind of get a good idea on who my top pick would be.
I think the hardest part is I found myself like really debating on a few of them. Like, who would win? You know? It was actually really hard to choose some of these. So I think that'll be fun to talk about, and I'm sure people will have different opinions. So if you have different thoughts, if you think we're wrong, let us know in the comments. It'd be great to hear some other people's opinions on why they think somebody else would win, or why we picked wrong.
Yep, absolutely.
And so with that, we'll start with the Universal monsters.
Yep, yeah, let's just start there. So with the first one, it was Dracula versus Jekyll and Hyde. Dracula was already the winner, written in the bracket when we printed it out, but I pretty much would have picked Dracula anyways. Jekyll and Hyde in movies are pretty old-timey, and there's just not really a lot of him. Not a lot of action, just a lot of mugging for the camera, mostly. So you kind of have to give that one to Dracula.
Yeah,
basically.
Dracula was the number 1 seed, rightfully so.
Yeah.
I had a little bit of difficulty with this one because I really like the Jekyll and Hyde character.
Right.
I think it's a really interesting story, and Jekyll and Hyde having this dual personality. I really like him as a character.
Yeah.
But I kind of went into this trying to think about if these 2 were in a fight.
Right.
Or like in a movie going up against each other.
Right.
Who do we think would come out on top and why?
Right.
And so, yeah, from that perspective, I don't think there's a lot of argument. I think Dracula would probably
I think Dracula, I mean, there's just not a lot of Dr. Jekyll, Mr. Hyde movies to kind of really compare it to.
Or maybe he could wait until he's back to Dr. Jekyll and attack him.
Right.
So
because that potion's got to run out.
So these are some of the fun kind of mental exercises you go through in picking one person over the other.
Yeah, correct.
So on to the next grouping. This was Frankenstein versus the Invisible Man.
Yeah, this one was Frankenstein because Frankenstein is You could argue that he's almost supernatural a little bit in terms of his strength. He can't really die. You'd probably have to like mangle him up pretty bad. The Invisible Man is just an invisible guy.
Right.
You know, like...
And the invisibility probably gives him some advantage. But, yeah.
But at the end of the day, he's just a guy. Mm-hmm. He doesn't have any other superpowers or strengths or anything like that. He's just a guy you can't see. I mean, what's he going to do? Throw some punches at Frankenstein? I don't know.
Yeah, yep. No, I agree. I picked Frankenstein mainly because in the first original Frankenstein movie, even in the sequel, you think he's dead and then he comes back.
Right.
So yeah, it seems like it's pretty hard to kill Frankenstein.
Right.
I don't think just the guy, even if he has invisibility, would be enough to.
Right. You throw a sheet over him and you find him. Right. Basically. You know what I mean.
T, do you want to go for the next one on the list?
Yeah. So the next one was the Wolfman versus the Bride. When we first started doing this, I picked the Bride because I thought the Bride was a little cooler than the Wolfman. But I'm like, I can't pick who's cooler. I have to pick who would actually do better in a fight. So I had to go with the Wolfman in this fight, just because it's kind of the same thing with the Dr. Jekyll, Mr. Hyde. The Bride is just kind of known for more mugging for the camera, not so much like physical strength or anything like that compared to the Wolfman. So I had to go with the Wolfman on that one.
And this is one that I actually took a long time to decide, kind of for the same reason. And I think a big part of it was I really liked the Bride of Frankenstein's character, and in particular the actress.
Right.
In The Bride of Frankenstein, I thought she did a phenomenal job.
Yeah.
And I really like the character.
Yeah.
And like the story and all the lore around it. So my intuition was to pick the Bride.
Right.
But then, then I kind of reviewed and thought about it, and I'm like, on the other hand, the Wolfman turns into a wolf. There's some pretty big advantages there.
Correct.
And then I thought, in terms of icons, the Wolfman was really kind of a template for the werewolf character, which, that's also a really huge character in the monster world.
Right.
So I picked the Wolfman as well. So so far,
we've
picked the identical picks.
Yeah. Yeah. The next one in that, the Creature from the Black Lagoon versus the Mummy. I picked the Creature from the Black Lagoon because with the Mummy, I think that's also kind of a guy. It's a dead guy with some ancient mummy curse type of thing, but I think the Creature from the Black Lagoon can fight on land and in water. So that's kind of why there's a little bit more advantage. The Mummy is a little slow moving, and I think the Mummy's more of an enemy to man than other creatures. Okay,
so this is the first one we don't agree on. I picked the Mummy, and part of it was I kind of felt like the Mummy's lore was that he was kind of like a living undead kind of entity.
Sure.
So I kind of came at it from a little bit of a different perspective, thinking, the Creature from a Black Lagoon is a creature. Mm-hmm. He can die, and maybe the Mummy's a little closer to like the supernatural or the lore side.
Yeah, I guess that's true, because it might be harder to defeat the Mummy just because of you probably need like a medallion or something to break the curse.
He's at least got a curse going for him.
Right. And he's kind of also, he's undead. He can kind of, his motivation keeps going. Mm-hmm. So yeah, I guess I can see that argument for sure.
And I think that one really could have gone either way.
Right.
So really, we're pretty similar.
Yeah.
So now we'll see how those four break down.
Yeah.
So the first one here we both had Dracula versus Frankenstein.
Right.
So T, what was your pick there?
I picked Frankenstein. And I picked Frankenstein because of Dracula's weaknesses. Frankenstein can keep going day and night. Dracula can't. One of Dracula's more powerful moves is to like bite its victim, which you're not really going to change Frankenstein into a vampire.
Sure.
You know what I mean? That ship has kind of sailed.
Yeah.
Turn into a bat. I mean, Frankenstein can just crush you. I think Frankenstein is stronger than Dracula in terms of like physical strength.
Oh, that's a good point.
So that's kind of where I'm at. I went with Frankenstein on that. He's definitely a lot slower than Dracula, but he's also kind of like a bit of a tank.
Yeah. And so I picked Dracula.
Okay.
And I don't know, maybe some personal bias kind of came into play there a little bit. I think we're both, big fans of Dracula.
Yeah.
But my thought was, Dracula's kind of immortal.
Yeah.
And I don't know if Frankenstein is necessarily immortal or not.
Yeah.
So I kind of felt like maybe if it was a sudden fight, they just encountered each other, Frankenstein would probably win.
Mm-hmm.
But I thought, if they were like mortal enemies for some reason, Dracula could plot and plan.
He is smarter, I think, and he's a little bit more cunning, which for me I think is very important. So I could definitely see why Dracula would be the victor in that for sure.
But again, I can see how it could kind of go either way.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
That's an interesting one.
So then you did the Wolfman versus the Mummy.
Yep.
What did you pick for that?
So I picked the Wolfman.
Okay.
Kind of for the similar reasons of Wolfman versus the Bride.
Sure.
I felt like he had a lot more advantages in being a wolf.
Right.
He could kind of plot and plan.
Yeah.
And I felt like if they encountered each other, maybe the Wolfman could just kind of tear the Mummy apart.
I could see that.
So there's some question on if the Mummy has supernatural life or power.
Yeah.
Or if that would affect, the Wolfman. But my pick was the Wolfman for that one.
Yeah, I think we're going to come across a lot of is dismembering actually killing the foe, because I know a lot of these people you can kind of take an arm or a leg off.
Yeah, yep.
And they don't necessarily die, or they can kind of reform.
Right. And this is why it gets kind of tricky when you're going through these. You start having these hypotheticals.
And thinking of technicalities.
What all do I know about this particular character?
Right.
And really what this exposed to me is I don't know like a ton of detail about all these. So a lot of these just kind of came down to what would I think.
What's your gut?
Yeah, which character do I think would come out on top?
Yeah. Well, for me, I had the Wolfman and the Creature from the Black Lagoon. And again, I went from Creature of the Black Lagoon just because of the fighting arena. Mostly, it's just because it can fight on land and it can fight in water.
Yeah,
it could somehow bring the Wolfman into like an underwater area or something like that. It kind of depends on where they're at.
Mm-hmm.
If the Creature from Black Lagoon is just walking through a forest, then it's probably going to be the Wolfman. But due to that being kind of somewhat unlikely, that the Wolfman would probably attack the Creature from the Black Lagoon in its own environment. That's why I usually pick that one, because that's more likely where that creature's going to be.
No, and I like that matchup a lot. One of the things that I started thinking about when I was going through this is which of these matchups would make a good movie.
Yes.
And I think the monsters that are closely matched in some way, those feel like it'd be a really interesting movie.
Right.
So I would totally watch the Wolfman versus the Creature from the Black Lagoon.
Yeah.
I think that'd be pretty cool.
I think that'd be good. So then who'd you have for your final two then?
So my final two, it was Dracula versus the Wolfman.
Okay.
And that almost, I don't know, is there a movie that's Dracula versus the Wolfman?
That seems like a classic line, doesn't it?
It sounds familiar.
Yeah.
Let us know in the comments if that is a movie, or maybe we'll do some research and see. I couldn't remember offhand if that was actually a movie or not, but it totally sounds like it could be a Universal monster movie.
Yeah. I think so. Who did you have win?
I again picked Dracula, mostly because I felt like, one, the Wolfman during the day becomes a man.
Okay.
But that's now when Dracula's probably
sleeping,
or he can't come out in the day.
Yeah.
So then I was like, now these are, again, more evenly matched. Like, the only time Dracula could attack him is at night when he's in his stronger form.
That's true.
But again, I kind of went to, Dracula is essentially immortal unless he's killed in some very specific ways that I didn't really think the Wolfman would probably, like, plan.
Yeah, is it like, because I guess we have to think about, like, are these impromptu fights? Are they just, like, walking around, they're like, oh, shit!
Right.
Or do they have all the necessary shit to, kill each other with? Because, like, Wolfman, you need, like, a silver bullet. Is Dracula walking around with, like, a silver bullet? You know what I mean?
It's also that's a way to kill Dracula, right? So
I don't know. I know vampires can't touch silver, I guess.
So here would be a crazy movie.
Yeah.
Dracula versus Wolfman,
Yeah.
And it boils down to a gunfight between the two.
Trying to shoot each other. I'd watch that movie. With Frankenstein Creature from the Black Lagoon, I picked Creature from the Black Lagoon again, just because I think the creature is fairly quick, and with Frankenstein being kind of slow and like a tank, I think that does make him more vulnerable. And it ties back to the environment.
Yeah.
I think he's probably fine on land. I've seen him flip a car before, so I know that he has strength on land, but I know Frankenstein can also like flip a car basically. So it kind of depends on how clever the creature is, but I just keep tying it back to the environment.
Yeah.
Basically. And the likelihood of where they would fight, Frankenstein I don't think would be in his laboratory or wherever he is.
It'd probably be outside.
Yeah.
In the elements.
Right.
Maybe the creature from the Black Lagoon feels more at home there.
I feel like the creature would be a little bit clever for Frankenstein. And that could be like, how did Dracula get so defeated so easily when Frankenstein, made it so far. But that's who my pick is for the Universal Monsters, is the creature from the Black Lagoon.
Okay. And mine ended up being Dracula, which in some ways kind of felt like a fan favorite or obvious choice.
Yeah.
But I was more thinking about it like he's essentially immortal.
Yeah.
He's potentially been around for hundreds, thousands of years.
Right.
I felt like he would have been the most crafty of the monsters.
The most experienced at being basically being a monster, which totally makes sense. Okay.
I liked your choice. It's a little bit of an underdog, but I agree with your reasoning.
Yeah.
I think it's an interesting take, and that's kind of why we're doing this. So that's the Universal Monster leg of the bracket. So I picked Dracula, T picked Creature from the Black Lagoon.
Correct. I will let you say the names of the group here, because I cannot pronounce that.
Okay, so we just got through with the Universal Monsters, and we're going to move on to the Kaiju section of the bracket, which I have to preface by saying neither of us are real familiar with like the Godzilla movies and characters and lore, so we're probably going to butcher a lot of these.
Yes, so please forgive us. If not, be as mean as possible in the comments section.
We deserve it.
Yeah, because I barely have a grasp on the English language, let alone another language. So I may say little cheats here, like the silly one or the three-headed one, just so that I can kind of get things moving along.
So that's how you've remembered them.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, and I've got little notes here as well. So yeah, we'll try our best. The other thing is with our choices here, we know a lot about some of the other monsters and movies and characters on this list. We're completely blind on this leg.
Yeah.
Apart for a couple fun ones that they snuck in there.
Yes.
So yeah, this will probably be entertaining especially for people that are fans of the Godzilla movies.
Yeah.
You're gonna find all kinds of things to call us out on.
Yeah.
So with that, we'll start going through this grouping, and so first on the list is, I think, King Ghidorah.
Yeah, that sounds
right.
Yeah, King Ghidorah. Yeah, that's how I would say it.
So three-headed.
The three-headed Godzilla
crazy
monster.
Godzilla monster.
Yes.
And I think my favorite part of this is in the Kaiju section, they put in Stay Puft.
Yes.
So
which I always thought it was State Puff. So that's why that confused me, because I always called it it's the State Puff thing. So that I'm learning right now.
He's Stay Puft.
Stay
He
Puft.
always stays puffed.
I did not know that. So when I was reading that, I'm like, who? I think it's State Puff. I think they're wrong. So no, I'm learning that in real time here, that it's actually State Puff.
Well, I'm glad now you know you're in on that.
Yeah.
On that joke.
So that's how good I am with horror movies and stuff like that. That I get the most famous ones. So
I was happy to see that they had included Stay Puft. Ghostbusters is one of my favorite movies.
Right.
So I thought that was really fun. So a huge part of me wanted to pick the Stay Puft Marshmallow Man.
Right.
But at the end of the day, he's up against a fire-breathing, three-headed Godzilla monster.
Basically a dragon.
Yeah. He's going to be a toasted marshmallow.
Right. He's going to be done.
So
he's going to be done.
That was my pick.
Yeah.
King Ghidorah goes on. Sorry, Stay Puffed.
That's it.
You're going to be toast.
Yeah. The next one is Mothra versus Gigan. I think I'm saying that right. I picked Gigan for that one. Gigan is robotic for the most part. He's alien. He's got 2 giant hooks and got a razor blade in his chest.
So you know more about Gigan than I do for sure.
When I was kind of looking at some of these monsters, because it's kind of like organic versus some inorganic monsters, and you kind of have to go with the inorganic a little bit because, one, they can't feel pain, they can't really be slowed down from their injuries. I mean, Mothra is a giant moth. Moths are basically made out of dust. Like, like when you're fighting with something with giant hooks, like what's it gonna do? It's gonna get your wings and drag you down. Like you're toast. Like, so Gigan was my number 1 pick for that.
I picked Mothra.
Okay. So you picked Dust. So
I picked Dust to win. And I think part of this is unfamiliarity with Gigan.
Yeah.
In the little bit that I looked up,
yeah,
I think he's a really powerful character.
Yeah.
But I just felt like being up against a giant moth.
Yeah.
Who's got like some crazy like sonic power.
Yeah.
I felt like the moth could come out on top.
Could do it.
You know, in my super limited knowledge of any of these, I picked Moth.
Yeah. Gotcha. Okay. So you picked Moth. The next one is Mecha Godzilla. So it's Godzilla but robotic.
Mm-hmm.
And Jet Jaguar?
Jet Jaguar.
Okay. Who'd you pick?
I picked Mecha Godzilla.
Okay, thank God. Because, so I picked Mecha Godzilla. I don't like Mecha Godzilla. I'm going to say that right now. Because I think Mecha Godzilla is... I don't like bigger and better.
Sure.
I don't like, hey, it's like this, but bigger and better. I hate that. So I hate Mecha Godzilla, but Jet Jaguar is like a Power Ranger. He looks lame as shit compared to all of those guys. It's like basically like, okay, cool monster, alright, cool robot. And then like Robin from the 1960s. Like
versus a mechanical Godzilla
he looks
who destroys
ridiculous.
Who destroys cities.
Yes. It's just like, okay, who invited the Power Ranger here? This So yeah, Mecha Godzilla, I'm glad you went with that because the other guys fucking ridiculous.
I again, with little knowledge of the Godzilla world, I thought like a huge mechanical Godzilla.
Yeah.
What are you gonna do against that?
I would say Jet Jaguar, he can move around a little bit better.
Mm-hmm. A little more mobile.
Because Mechagodzilla is very boxy and everything like that, but I picked it slowly on the merit that he looked ridiculous.
In my mind, I remember some of the Godzilla movies.
Yeah.
And there's like armies going against these monsters.
Yeah.
And I just feel like, I feel like Jet Jaguar, like, can he really compete with an army?
Yeah, right. I mean,
this guy.
Maybe, but like, he looks fucking ridiculous doing it. So that, I picked him solely on that. Gamera and is it Biolante?
I think Biolante. Yeah.
Biolante?
Yeah.
I know who you're gonna pick. And why don't you say why?
So, I am totally going with Gamera on this one.
Yeah, I knew you would.
Because I've seen more Gamera movies than Godzilla movies by a long shot.
Right.
And Gamera's got some serious moves. He's a turtle. He's a giant turtle.
He's a giant turd. You're right.
But he's got some moves. He can like spin.
I don't know.
That's about all I remember.
Basically, yeah. Okay.
So here's my reasoning for Gamera over Biolante.
Okay.
Okay, Gamera's a giant turtle.
Uh-huh.
Biolante is basically a giant plant.
Right.
And
that's acid.
And turtles eat plants.
Yeah.
So
okay,
Gamera wins.
Okay, so Gamera does not win because the Gamera movies.
Gamera wins the whole
I'm
the whole thing.
Yeah, I'm so sick of the MST3Ks with Gamera. I'm done. Stop doing Gamera movies. Biolante is awesome. It's like this giant, like plant-like worm that spits acid, like radioactive acid. Like that's cool. That's cool. Plus, I haven't seen a million movies about you, and yeah.
So your vote is for the giant salad.
Correct.
Okay.
The giant salad over Gamera. Gamera can suck it. I'm over Gamera. So let's go back up to the list.
Okay.
So King Ghidorah versus Mothra. Who'd you pick?
I stayed with King Ghidorah.
Okay.
And my reasoning was a little bit like your first round reasoning.
Okay.
I'm like giant 3-headed Godzilla monster
Right.
versus a moth.
Yeah. Fair enough.
Yeah, who's gonna win there? Essentially, King Ghidorah he roasted Stay Puft.
Yeah.
And then I think he just walks over to Mothra.
Yeah.
And he roasts Mothra.
Gotcha.
He turns him into like flaming dust.
Flaming dust, basically. Okay. Yeah.
That was my pick.
That totally makes sense. So a lot of these monsters evolve into other monsters, or not other monsters, but a kind of an updated
like
version.
different forms.
That's with a lot of Japanese stuff I've noticed.
Mm-hmm.
Like they kind of like evolve or get to a next level where they change a little bit. Gigan gets chainsaws for hands. It's kind of like these tuning forks, basically, that have like little chainsaws on them.
Again, you've done way more research in
so
the Gigan than I did.
When I saw that, and then I saw the 3-headed monster of King Ghidorah, I'm just like, those necks would have easily been cut off.
Okay.
Like, chainsaw hands, long giraffe necks, it's like, that's the only thing I picture when I see those two fight. So I picked Gigan again. Also with him being like alien cyborg.
Yeah.
You know, chainsaws, things like that. You know, King Ghidorah just being this kind of vulnerable, you know,
giant
dumpy body
monster
with long necks and everything. Like, looks like a Dr. Seuss character. Like, yeah, you're gonna lose.
So maybe I should have done some more research on Gigan.
Gigan, I'm going Gigan.
Okay.
For that one at least. So you had Mecha Godzilla versus Gamera. Who'd you pick?
That's like the match of the century. If
yeah.
that was a movie, that would destroy.
No one would watch it.
It would destroy all box office records.
It would. Okay. Well, MST3K would do it, and I would hate that too. Who did you pick?
So as much as I wanted to pick Gamera, because I knew it would just totally get under your skin.
Yeah.
I couldn't seriously pick the spinning turtle.
Yeah.
Over the Mechagodzilla.
Right.
So I had to go with Mechagodzilla.
I had Mechagodzilla and Biolante. I also had to go with Mechagodzilla because you're mechanical, you don't have that much vulnerability. Like I said, I don't really care for Mechagodzilla, but versus the radioactive
salad.
Spit or whatever, I don't think it would have really held up.
So well. you had Mechagodzilla versus the salad shooter.
Right, correct. The salad shooter would have not made it. And Gamera is still dead. So this is like my perfect universe.
I'm glad you're happy.
So then for the next round, I have Gigan versus Mechagodzilla.
And that's a cool matchup because they're not biological. Like I guess he's like an alien cyborg, right?
Right.
Like you said, he's
kind of
somewhat mechanical. So it's kind of like mechanical versus mechanical.
Right. Who did you have for your second round?
So I had
your second to last round.
I had King Ghidorah versus Mechagodzilla.
Okay. Who did you pick?
So I had to continue on with Mechagodzilla because I just felt like 3-headed monster versus like giant mechanical Godzilla.
Yeah.
I felt like Mechagodzilla just still had the advantage.
I think we kind of had the same line of thinking a little bit with like the mechanical like versus like
organic.
Right. With Gigan and Mechagodzilla, I went Gigan again because Gigan can move better than Mechagodzilla.
It's more agile.
You know, like Mechagodzilla is like, you know, I can rotate my head all the way around. Fucking great. So Gigon is my number one pick.
Okay.
Out of all of them, because of just, being able to move. It's fast. It evolves. It's part mechanical. That's my number one pick.
Okay.
For that.
Yep. So you went Gigon.
Yeah.
I went Mechagodzilla.
Yep.
And that's where we ended up for the kaiju section of the bracket.
Yes.
So I think what we're going to do is we're going to go through each quadrant and pick the individual one from each of those. So we'll end up with 4.
Okay.
And then from there we'll do the final 4.
The final 4 then?
The final round.
That makes sense.
So far I've got Dracula versus Mechagodzilla.
I have Creature from the Black Lagoon versus Gigan.
So I'm glad we've kind of ended up in different spots.
Yes.
So that's cool.
I think our thinking is similar.
Yeah, we kind of approached this in a similar way.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'm glad we did this like blindly.
Yeah. So we didn't keep coming up with.
And I'm glad we didn't end up with all the same.
Right, because then it's just like, we just.
That'd be boring.
We think exactly the same.
Yeah, we all agree and everything's happy.
I also like how there's just kind of like. There's some not like, well, who would win? It's just like I'm gonna pick Gamera because I like Gamera.
Yeah.
And that's it. Which is how brackets go.
Right.
Honestly. Listen, it can exist outside of March Madness, I think.
It just goes to show you how where our priorities are.
Right. Because someone will say at my job, the Badgers are playing tonight, and I will ask, which sport?
Which sport ball?
What sport are they playing tonight? So that's how far off I am. I don't even know what season we're starting or ending or anything like that.
But we know when MST3K episodes are coming out.
Yes.
So.
Yes.
Again,
and I'll come over and watch them.
We have our priorities straight.
Yeah. It's kind of like having friends coming over and watching the game. Right. It's like the same. It's the same thing. It's the same thing.